Hey guys, so we are going to start to begin to introduce the last essay type, but we're going to do it the same way we would eat an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One small bite at a time. So I'm not going to teach you all the components of how to do this type of essay today, but I'm going to start to show you some little bits and pieces of it so that as we go through the year, we can add to this type of assignment so that by the end of the year, we are going to write what's called a DBQ. Now, a DBQ stands for a document-based question. And here's the difference between DBQ and an LEQ. In a DBQ, you get a bunch of documents. They can be reading passages, maps, graphs, charts, works of art, whatever. And you have to use the documents to write an argument. The difference between a DBQ and an LEQ is in an LEQ, you're using the material you've learned in class. And in DBQ, you're using the information that's in the documents themselves. So you're going to create an argument from the information in the documents. That argument becomes your thesis. Of course, right as I start doing this, my neighbor starts cutting their grass. But we're going to power through this. So the types of prompts are very, very, very similar. This question says, evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese transformed maritime trade in the Indian Ocean in the 16th century. So you're going to get a bunch of documents about this. They're all going to be from the 16th century. And this is an evaluate the extent of change question. It drives me crazy when they tell us to teach the language of a prompt a certain way and they change the language of the prompt itself. This really should say evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese changed maritime trade. And then the argument could be, well, they changed it a lot, and here are the different ways they changed it. Or, despite their attempts, these are the things in maritime trade that they don't change. And again, you can only use information in the documents to support this. Now, in Canvas, there's a whole DBQ. It's got 7 documents. All I want you to do starting today in class, and we're going to continue to do this, is use documents 1, 4, and 5. You're going to use documents 1, 4, and 5, and you're going to try to figure out what is the change or what is the continuity that all 3 of those documents support. Okay, so you're going to do a 2-paragraph activity for me today. The first thing is you're going to write an opening paragraph with context and a thesis. Now, context in this question is exactly the same as this for an LEQ. So this question is about the Portuguese and maritime trade in the Indian Ocean. So there's 2 ways you can get context. We're going to talk about this. Oh, we'll go to this slide right now, actually. There's 2 ways you can get context. Number 1, you can use information from the previous period to set the background for what happens before the Portuguese get into the Indian Ocean. So, for example, if you said in the previous period, Muslim merchants traveled across the Indian Ocean trading luxury goods between East Asia, the Middle East, and South Asia, and that these interactions were not heavily governed by any one state and were free and open to all. And Muslim merchants traded silk, porcelain, pepper, slaves in an open and wealthy trade before the Portuguese arrived. You're giving really good background information. That would be an example of context. So if I had a period 4 question and the question was about how are things made, one of the ways I could do context is explain how are things made in period 3 to set kind of the stage for, and this is how it's going to change when I start to write the essay. If I had a question here in this period about the impact of technology on trade in period 2, I'd talk about the technologies that impacted trade in period 1 to show that this had already been going on in the previous period. Or you can use information from within the period to set it as background. So the question is the Portuguese in the Indian Ocean. So if you explained how the Portuguese got to the Indian Ocean, for example, the Portuguese using new technologies like the lateen and caravels, use these technologies to try to find a way to India. Through the exploration of the African coast by explorers like Diaz and da Gama, Portuguese mariners will ultimately make their way into the Indian Ocean, where they will attempt to get involved in Indian Ocean trade. So this question is about trade, and I took a theme, explorations, and tied it to the theme to explain why the Portuguese are here. That's an example of context. Both examples work. And then your thesis. So you're going to have to read these three documents and say, what is a common change, or what is a continuity that all three of these documents are showing? So I want to show you document 2 in this DBQ. So this document says the Muslims in Calicut are rich and live well, and they used to control all the sea trade from that town. Indeed, if the King of Portugal had not discovered India, Malabar would also have been in the hands of the Muslims. In addition to the local Muslims, there are also foreign Muslims in Calicut, such as Arabs, Persians, and Gujaratis. They are great merchants, sail to all parts of the world with their goods, and have their own Muslim leader who rules over them and disciplines them as necessary, without the Hindu king of Calicut meddling with them. And before the King of Portugal discovered the country, the Muslim traders were so numerous and powerful in the city of Calicut that the Hindus did not dare to enter into disputes with them. After the King of Portugal made himself master there, these Muslims saw they could not defend their position there. They began to leave Calicut, so that very few of them remain today. So, what is an argument that I would use, that I would make, and I would use information from this document to support? I would say the impact of Muslims in Indian Ocean trade is declining. And I would quote what it said in the last sentence to justify and back up what I'm saying. Okay, now, for me to write a whole paragraph about the argument that a major change is the decline of Muslims in the Indian Ocean, I would have to have other documents that would go with this. I need at least 2 documents in a grouping. So, again, I've already made it easy for you. I said use those 3 documents, 1, 4, 5, and find a common theme in the arguments to say this change took place or this continuity took place. So, but this is an example of how you would use a document. Okay, the change is Muslims are not as powerful in Indian Ocean trade as they used to be. And I can use information from this document to back it up. The evidence for these essays comes from the document. So you are sourcing and citing and paraphrasing information to explain what argument this document is used to support. Now, so that's the first. So read 1, 4, and 5 and ask yourself, what is an argument that information from all 3 documents would support? Put some time into that, put some thought into that. Once you've gotten that, that becomes your topic sentence for that paragraph. That also becomes your thesis, but should be your thesis. Since we're only doing one body paragraph right now, whatever your thesis was should be your topic sentence for these body paragraphs. And it should say 1, 4, and 5 show this change or this continuity that occurred when the Portuguese arrived in Indian Ocean. Now, There's a second thing. There's another thing you need to do. So you're making the argument. You're going to support the argument with information from each document. And then the third thing you have to do is you have to explain. And for this activity we're doing today, I want you to explain this. The purpose of the document or the intended audience of the document, or what is the point of view of the document? That is frequently the bias. This is the things that are behind the scenes. So for example, in this document, you have a government official. This government official is talking about a Portuguese government policy, and that government policy is to expand in Portugal on the Malabar coast. Now, I want you to think about this. Why would a Portuguese official on the Malabar coast write this document? So it's not what the document says, it's why would he write this document? So that's what point of view is. What is his bias, or what is he getting out of it? Well, you could argue he's writing this document because he's hoping to get continued support from the Portuguese king, because the stronger that Malabar is, and the more trade the Portuguese get out of this trade on the Malabar coast, the more powerful this government official becomes, because he's the Portuguese bureaucrat in charge of this region. So he's trying to tell the Portuguese king, hey, we really need to stay here. We really need to get involved here. And here's why. And that's his point of view. The other thing you could say, so the intended purpose could be to increase, try to convince Portuguese leadership to increase their involvement in the Malabar coast. Or it could be, like I said, this is what he gets out of it. If the Portuguese king will send more support, he becomes stronger. Or his intended audience is the elites back in Portugal who he's hoping to influence. Again, you've got to connect dots. The documents are never going to say this. You have to stop and think, why would this guy write this? Or who is he trying to influence? And why is he trying to influence? That is what we call sourcing. And sourcing is a really big component of these essays. I want you to try to source all three documents. So your body paragraph needs to have the following things. It needs to have the topic sentence. You need to draw evidence from all three documents saying, this is the information from these documents that supports this idea. And then source each document. If you can do this, you can write a DBQ. So you have to think critically, you have to connect the dots, but it is something that we're going to be able to do. And we're going to start analyzing documents a whole lot. So print this DBQ, all the documents out. We're going to talk about the other documents down the road. See if you can figure out point of view. Write one cohesive paragraph, actually two, your opening paragraph in this and one body paragraph. And let's see who in this class can use their big brain and analyze documents successfully. All right, so this is the next big thing we're going to do in this class. If you got any questions, put them into the chat or ask them once we finish this. Okay, thanks guys.